Hello there, I'm William, and with me is Sean.
Hello.
And we'll be discussing the new horror movie Hereditary, which just hit theaters. So we'll start off with a spoiler-free section with just general thoughts on the movie before we go into any spoilers or plot details. And then we'll devote an entire section to spoilers, and we'll clearly state when we're going into that so you know when to jump out if you haven't seen it yet. Because this is a movie I think that's good to go into it not knowing a lot. Because I went into it without having even watched the trailer for it, just because I generally don't want to see the trailers for things that I do want to see. And movies like this, I feel like a lot of times to try to sell the horror aspects, they might show stuff from the trailer that's later in the movie or pretty key moments. So I didn't watch the trailer until after I saw the movie. But did you watch the trailer before you saw it?
So I watched the trailer back whenever I think one first debuted. I don't know if they've cut different trailers.
Yeah.
But, you know, there was a lot of good buzz coming out, I guess, out of Sundance or whatever.
Or I think it's South by Southwest a few months ago.
They put out a trailer, the first trailer or teaser or whatever. I watched that and was like, okay, I'm on board. I want to see this. And I kind of ignored the rest of it. But yeah, there's even some imagery from the trailer that when some things are brought up in the film, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that from a trailer from like months ago.
Yeah.
Now I kind of think something may be coming. You know what I mean? You don't ever know if stuff in the trailers are dreams or something like that. But that did bum me out, and I was like waiting for something. Thankfully, it wasn't dead on what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one of those things where in a film, you know, they're showing, I guess, some of the strongest imagery in the teaser to get audiences going.
Yeah.
So when you do get into the story, when it is a film that is very much about the drama and the family relationships, you're going to see some of the major moments maybe if they sizzle the trailer out with those, unfortunately.
Yeah, so don't watch the trailer if you haven't already. If you have seen it, I watched it after the movie. It's just imagery. But yeah, so the overall movie, I think that the big thing that you kind of go into this movie, what's going to determine how much you like it is what the expectations are for the movie. Because a lot of the trailers and advertisements said the scariest movie since The Exorcist, or this generation's The Exorcist, or I've seen reviews that say like The Shining, The Exorcist, now Hereditary, talking just about how it joined like the pantheon of horror classics. And I think that a lot of the advertisement, they're trying to get people on seats. They're trying to give you reasons to go see the movie. So they're just selling you on any quotes that any reviewers have given, just things they think will make people want to see the movie. And in doing so, they set up expectations that are sky high.
And you know, it's not, it's a bummer when that happens because it is setting the bar so high on when you're talking about some of the greatest horror films of all time. You know, comparing yourself against that would suck as a director. But for me, I think tonally, it aspires to something like The Shining or The Exorcist or like Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
It is aspiring towards that sort of tone and feel. So if you like those films, don't expect it to be the next Shining or the next Exorcist.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're okay with a little bit of a slower burn, but it also still is very much a horror film, I think. You know, it is not something like It Comes at Night where people are like, well, what even was that? Like, nothing came at night or whatever. That may have not been your traditional view of what a horror film is, especially if you're coming from something that is, you're looking for a creature feature. But at the same time, that was more of suspense, I think. I think this is more of a horror film than something like that is.
Yeah.
You know, it is not just all suspense. There is some payoffs. There are things that actually happen. It's not just some slow zooms down a hallway with some music and then cut to the next shot of something else. You know what I mean? It's not just that.
Yeah, because like I said, without really giving any spoilers, so a lot of the complaints about a movie like The Witch, which came out a couple years ago, same distributor, A24, a common complaint was they didn't go far enough. The movie ended 5 minutes before what people really wanted to see happen. And I don't think this movie suffers from that. I don't think it really holds anything back. I think you kind of leave the movie knowing what you've seen. There's still some ambiguity and some discussion and some, if you want to, after the movie, read up on what other people thought, there is still room for that. But it's not a movie that's completely obscure and just leaves you scratching your head thinking, what did I see? Why did I see it? This makes no sense. I don't think it really leaves you with that. Yeah. As much as some things like...
To me, it felt like, so The Witch, and sorry to compare these, but this is closer to the wheelhouse. This is A24 horror.
Yeah.
This is not strictly Blumhouse horror. I think this is... I was telling you, we weren't on this complete same page, but this feels closest to a Blumhouse horror than A24 has done yet. only because there are some payoffs and some things actually happening throughout. And the director seems to be coming from a place of somebody who's a fan of horror, or is fine with horror tropes.
And there's shots in it that would not be out of place in a Conjuring film.
Yes,
some individual small moments, not the overall feeling or story arc.
Yeah, tonally it's a little bit different. But The Witch, I'm blanking on the director's name.
Robert Eggers.
Yes, Robert Eggers. It wasn't like he was seemingly thinking, "Hey, I love these specific horror films. I want to make a witch horror film."
Yeah.
It was very much like he wants to make a film about the fears of people living in Salem witch trials era.
Yeah.
And kind of the fears there, and the fear of the woods and the unknown, and what that mindset will be from those people. And that was the place he was coming from. He wasn't saying like, "Hey, I want to make a scary movie that is, that maybe pulls elements from other horror films that I love."
Yeah.
Like, he was very much coming from an original vision. This feels like it's coming from more of the direction of like, "Hey, I like these types of horror films.
Yeah.
Let me develop one from this direction, built on other horror films."
Yeah.
So at least it has some sort of common foundation. And yeah, the ending of the films and maybe like some of the places it goes are more traditional than just something that is less abstract or more poetic, or or lyrical, than some of the other horror films. So it at least has those touchstones, and it's actually more so than I thought it was going to have.
Yeah, so the more general thoughts. So like Toni Collette is in it, is Annie. She gives an amazing performance. If this wasn't kind of a genre horror film, I think she might be in awards contention, or at least discussion for what she does in this movie, the amount of things she has to portray. And it is funny thinking that she's in this movie in 2018, and she was in The Sixth Sense playing the mother of Haley Joel Osment's character in '99, or whenever that came out. So these huge generational shifts, 18 years in between, still playing these roles in these movies and doing a great job with it. So she's great. The actress that plays the daughter Charlie, Millie Shapiro, she was very effective and very distinctive, and gave a performance that some people compare like elements of this movie to Don't Look Now, the movie with Donald Pleasance and from the 70s. So I think it is kind of more in the wheelhouse of a movie like that.
Yeah. It builds mystery around like, what is happening.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just leave it there. Like the film doesn't end and you're not like, well, I don't know what happened. I wasn't satisfied. You know what I mean? It at least kind of doesn't leave you hanging, and doesn't feel like it's not a. Sometimes the directors have a vision and they don't want to reveal it all, but sometimes audience members walk away feeling like, well, I don't think they even knew what they were talking about. You know what I mean? It's not that type of film, but it does. Don't Look Now is a pretty good comparison, I think, for sure.
Yeah, so like the performances are very strong throughout.
The whole family unit is great, and actually some other characters that kind of come in to be more of a central role than just little extras or whatever. I think they all did phenomenal together too, and it really does the film seem like they really did. They did great casting and really leaned into the performances. Again, we were talking about Blumhouse films off camera, but not to knock those at all, but those feel very genre heavy, and it's like, hey, do we want to spend more time building up these characters, or getting a couple more extra scare shots in there, or really make sure we know that they do perfectly great job in a lot of those films, and it's serviceable. And they often cast great actors as well, but they get the job done normally. Yeah, they sell it. This very much is focused on that family unit, I think.
And two, like the movie as a whole, like there are some scares in it, and there is some disturbing imagery and things like that happen. But I think if somebody goes into this movie wanting it to be The Conjuring or something of that nature, it's not that type of movie at all. It's more of kind of like I'd say the first hour is kind of like a slow burn family drama, and then things occur, and then there's kind of a shift, and then the second half goes more into some of the more horror supernatural elements. And I think that is the pacing of. I could see a lot of general audiences disliking the movie, and they did, because the movie's gotten like a C- or a D- cinema score, which they question people to come out of the theater and then formulate what their review is based on that. Because I think a lot of people going into this are expecting something that's kind of like The Conjuring, with a lot of jump scare set pieces and ghosts, and then what you get is more of a slow burn movie that's more evocative of stuff like you said, Don't Look Now, and even though it's it's a little bit faster than the original Exorcist, that general wheelhouse. Not comparing it to that quality wise, just if you go in expecting it to be Insidious or Sinister or The Conjuring, it's not that at all. It has more happen than It Comes at Night or The Witch, but if you don't want to go and see a family drama, the movie's called Hereditary, and it very much has to do with like the generations in that family. If you go into it wanting kind of a jump scare fest or something more in line with It or Get Out, this is not that at all. This is much more in line with something like Don't Look Now, or contemporary movies. Discussing it in the same, not saying quality-wise or plot-wise, but it's more of that kind of prestige horror that you would say, like The Babadook.
And just to note, like, I wasn't big on The Babadook.
Yeah,
you weren't huge either. I
mean, I did like it more on a rewatch, but that movie operates on a metaphorical level. This movie operates on a lot of metaphorical things, and then things happening in the movie itself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think...
Yeah, my first watch, I've only seen this once. This is opening weekend for it. So it is, I think this film will change perspective almost more than a lot of other films do, for some reason, just because there was a lot of hype behind it that really hurts the film when it doesn't deliver, and film can.
The hype for anything. So when you think about recent movies that have had hype, so It Follows, the hype hurt that with a lot of people. The Witch, Babadook, a lot of movies like that when you get a lot of hype behind them, and they're more prestige movies than they are general audience, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street type movies.
Crowd pleasers.
Then people go into it who are the general audience who don't watch those types of movies because they've heard the praise, and they go in and they come out disappointed.
Yeah.
So I can see that happening with this 100%. Yeah. I guess to kind of wrap up thoughts before we go into the spoiler section, kind of echoing that, I think if you go into it and you want to see kind of a more cerebral, paced horror movie that's not focused on jump scares and ghosts and things like that, if you go into it wanting to see something that will kind of dig into the family drama and the trauma and grief and things like that, it's effective at that, and if you go into it with that mindset, it is effective. I think if you go in wanting something else, you'll be very disappointed, and people have been, because I've just seen, like, on Facebook, like, friends who've seen it have said things like that.
Yeah.
So I think kind of setting your expectations and knowing what you're getting, you can enjoy it a lot and have it be one of your favorite horror movies of the year, the past few years, if it's what you're looking for.
Yeah, if it totally lines up with what you appreciate in horror films.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my tastes have changed in the past 5 years even, and based on what I really love, I can really enjoy a film that's like, okay, this isn't, an average Blumhouse. Like Insidious 3 I liked a whole lot, but like, the Conjuring film, Conjuring 2 or whatever, I thought it was fine. Yeah. I didn't love it, but it's not in my wheelhouse of what I liked.
Yeah.
This, if it kind of fits your certain taste, this will really be your jam because it is handled so well. The performances are great. If you're on board for it, you're really gonna love this film. For me too, just based on, again, you're not knowing what the film even was too, watching the film, I was like waiting. I was kind of waiting so much of this film to reveal itself.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it going to reveal itself? Is it going to kind of leave me hanging, which can also be effective at times.
Yeah.
But I think through the first part of it, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this film. The performances are great. There are some, I don't want to say high stakes, but some high drama. Like, you know what I mean? There's some things that happen and handled in certain ways that I haven't seen in film before. Not that say like there are certain deaths or whatever, or scares or moments. Like there's tons of tropes this leans on and things you've seen in films before. But just as far as the family relationship drama, I haven't seen certain situations happen before like this, or handled on screen. But once it gets rolling and kind of almost more of the plot reveal itself and not just the characters having to deal with some certain things emotionally, I was kind of getting into it more, and that can take a turn where you may not like where it goes as far as how the film handles some of the, I guess, genre heavy elements or some of the tropes. But I feel like I think I may come around on this film and actually enjoy it even more on rewatches.
Yeah.
Now that I know what it is. And that's the thing with a lot of horror films with hype built up and stuff. It's just knowing what you're getting.
Yeah.
And then being able to like, okay, this is where my thoughts align on it. You know, you may walk out really high on it and then later think, hey, I just was high on certain elements of it and actually, you know, in 6 months I didn't really leave it lasting impact. This film may have the potential to leave more of an impact on you. You know, for me, it had me thinking about certain things in the theater of my own personal life and death and everything, and I was actually distracted some, and I had a dream last night about people dying, and you know what I mean? I think this may have affected me on a deeper level than I thought.
Yeah.
But it all depends on where you're coming from and your own experiences on what you draw on it. So it definitely can be different things for different people, but I ended up liking it quite a bit walking out, and now thinking about it even more, I'm pretty high on it actually. Yeah. And I'm interested in revisiting it to see where I'm going to land after washing away expectations and knowing what this film is.
Yeah, I mean, too, I'd say it's kind of the anti-crowd pleaser. It's one of those movies that nobody's going to walk out of, like, pumped, just because of the nature of what it is. So it's one of those movies where, you know, if what we talked about, the tone and feeling of it and all that is interesting, then it's a recommend. If you're wanting kind of a Blumhouse-ish type haunted house movie, scary movie, The Conjuring, Insidious, Sinister, it's not really that at all. So I think you'll probably come away, if that's the expectation, disappointed. So I think now we're going to move into the spoiler discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see it, just go ahead and jump out now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think we discussed enough to give you an idea of whether or not you'd want to see it. It's just, you know, like I said, not really it's not like Lights Out, which was kind of like a set-piece constructed horror movie with really good sequences. This is all about the feeling and the tone and everything like that.
Which you don't want to spoil.
Yeah, so now we'll move into the full spoiler discussion. And, yeah, to start out, like, the girl Charlie, like, very unsettling, the performance, very creepy. Like I said, full spoilers, like, what they do with that character to me was incredibly surprising, because the marketing kind of led you to believe that it's going to be driven by her. Or that she's kind of like the main focus, or
maybe she was conflicting terror throughout the family even.
Yeah, or that she was supernatural in some way, and then you have the big reveal where she gets killed in the first half of the movie, and you're like, wow, that wasn't what I expected at all, based on the marketing for this.
And very like awful situation to think about. You know, her brother, who, you know, I was thinking about it too, they take her to the party, they're spending time with this family, and I was thinking, they're letting us spend time with this family to set us up for something bad.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like some horror films have awful characters in there where you're like, these are bad people. This kid, he wanted to just be a teen, but he also surprisingly wasn't an asshole to his sister. You know, he's like, he brought her along. He wasn't like telling her to go to hell when he got to the party. Yeah. You know, he was just like, hey, just give me a minute. You saw he wanted to get off with this girl that he liked. Yeah. He didn't, you know, he's like, hey, there's some cake. Like, he wasn't just trying to leave her alone to cry in a corner.
Then you find the backstory about the mother, Annie, had sleepwalked and had covered the kids in paint thinner and had a match in her hand, was about to light it when the son woke up and saw that. So that had kind of fractured their relationship because they did not believe that she was just sleepwalking, and thought there was something more dastardly going on because her mom had a history of mental health issues and her brother had committed suicide. So you have all these things, so the name Hereditary really comes into play with all this. And for them to kind of change gears and have the daughter die and then it not be about, you know, the grief of her death causes things, but then the supernatural elements with the seance, and when Annie meets her friend, I'm forgetting the friend's name, and they get together and they go over the spiritualist, because in the family, in their mail slot, they received a flyer about a spiritualist at some point.
I'm not seeing her name right away.
Joan.
Joan, okay, yeah.
So Joan, and you see her character.
I think her performance was great as well.
Yeah, now I was trying to think, like, where I know her from. She's on The Handmaid's Tale, the Hulu series, and some other things. But when she comes into play, and you get the supernatural elements and the seance stuff, then it really kind of kicks into gear the kind of scares that happen, and not just the grotesque imagery like a severed child's head with ants on it. You actually get, you know, something in the shadows or in the corner.
For me, this is very much the genre heavy element, because it is seances. Like, you know, whether you believe in that or not, I don't believe in it, so it is very much like, okay, this is a movie world stuff now, and that's where I think it veers more in Blumhouse territory than A24's typical stuff, because
Yeah.
it is like, hey, we're watching a movie, just make believe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm fine with that, with the way it's been with the way, I'm fine with that in any film, but normally it doesn't appeal to me as much. But because they built up so much goodwill with this film, with me
Yeah.
personally, with the performances and everything else and how they handled things, it was more effective. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like it was just like, you know, hey, we're gonna have a seance because we need to introduce some demons in here for
Yeah.
some scares. One interesting thing though is, I was thinking, what was the function of the daughter being creepy? I know the mother had issues with basically letting her grandmother have a big role in her life,
Yeah.
and she said that kind of turned her a little bit.
Yeah.
So I get that, but part of me feels like, was her daughter creepy just to fill up the space in the beginning of the film? You know what I mean? Like, what was the role of that?
I think it was
you know?
more that the grandmother had gotten her hooks in her and kind of led her down the path of being into this type of
Yes,
stuff.
okay.
And being more morbid.
Okay.
And they thought she was initially going to be the vessel for the spirit. So I think it was maybe more like that.
I was kind of thinking that.
And it was a tonal creepy thing.
I was wondering, I was like, is it totally tonal creepy? Because, but yeah, but also
And then
too,
like the
Yes.
noise that she made with her mouth was very unsettling.
Yeah.
And that was something where in a lot of theaters I've heard of people in the audience replicate that sound throughout themselves, just being jackasses.
So you can see a screening at a film festival where people were there to enjoy cinema,
Yeah.
being more respectful, and this
The
being a
genre
better
fans and
experience.
critics.
Yeah, this is being a much better experience, I'm sure, with the right audience.
Because horror itself can be ruined by the audience experience, because sometimes it can elevate a movie and make you really like something more than you will when you watch it later by yourself.
Yeah.
Or it can ruin it because you have a group of unruly, like 14-year-olds kicking all the seats and playing on their phones.
And two, you know, I do this as well. Sometimes people like to make jokes to break tension. So
Yeah.
if this film is getting its hooks into certain people, you could see them trying even hard to make jokes to kind of break some tension.
Well, and two, not to make us sound like crunchy old men talking about kids, but like just when you go to theaters and you have like a mixed audience of people that are different ages and different levels of interest, some people could check out 15 minutes and hate the movie and then just yell at the screen and things
Yeah.
like that. And that for a movie like this, it's so mood heavy, I think would really hurt the experience.
Yeah.
But then like the movie has like the creepy elements. To me, I like the first half more than the second half, because once the creepy stuff starts coming into it, nothing to me was that scary.
Yeah.
Because when you watch a lot of horror films, nothing's really scary. It's just how much are you invested in the characters to then react to what's on screen. And to me, I didn't get drawn in enough to any of the characters specifically to be super invested in their fate. And then they layered in some elements that kind of showed you what the supernatural elements really were. If you looked hard enough, you could see like the same symbols, and then like when the mom's looking through like some of the spiritual books her mom had, you can kind of catch enough story to place.
There was some good
pieces
mystery
together.
building throughout. It didn't all just come at once.
But then at the end, they kind of at the very, very end, like the last minute or two, they kind of have the info dump of Joan's character kind of giving all the background you need to understand what happened, which I think was probably a result of like a test screening maybe, where people said they didn't understand what was going on enough. So maybe that was something to kind of fill in those blanks. But if you were kind of following it, it seems unnecessary.
Yeah, because she's never even shown on screen.
Yeah,
they're just holding a shot.
Yeah, it's just a voiceover, so I'm assuming that was added later.
She's supposed to be in the scene, but we never cut to her.
Yeah, so the end imagery, you have like a decaying body, Annie slitting her own throat with like
That
a
was
cable.
pretty rough. The daughter getting decapitated.
The dad getting burnt alive.
Yeah, like there are some horrible things that happen to this family.
The decapitated head of the daughter. And so once you find out what's really gone, they're just trying to resurrect some spirit through a body. It takes away a little bit of the mystery. And to me, like, it almost would have played better to be a little bit more ambiguous towards the end. Did they really accomplish the goal, or is is the kid in shock and just kind of looking around, like wondering what happened, realizing like his life's been ruined because his entire family's gone and there's all these things that have happened.
Some people hate ambiguity. You know what I mean?
So it's kind of like
deal with it.
It's a double-edged sword. You go one way, half the audience hates it. You go the other, you kind of push people away. I mean, I think it struck enough balance. And this is definitely a movie that will require some rewatches to kind of figure out where it falls. But I totally get people hating this and loving it. But I think seeing this at a film festival where the crowd is all critics or genre fans, and you have the filmmakers in the audience or people from the cast or something, if you have that environment, that's much more conducive to everybody enjoying their time and taking it serious and watching it, Versus, like, I was lucky in the theater I saw it was mostly sold out because I saw it on a Thursday night, but everybody was quiet and they watched it. There was no interruptions, and there weren't really any murmurings or anything in the crowd. So it was a kind of decent audience to watch it with. Nobody really reacted to much.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really more of a jump scare screaming movie. It's more of just like, oh, that's a severed head and there's ants on it. That's gross.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think we kind of covered like all the main story elements. Like the movie kind of doesn't leave much to the imagination in terms of figuring out what happened. It kind of puts
That's
a
why I
bow
was
on it.
almost surprised. It is very genre heavy in that you don't really have to. It's not much mystery left behind. It is the thing that a lot of horror films do that try to really be horrifying, as they leave the characters off in a bad place. You know what I mean? Or things do not achieve a goal or survive or come out on top. So when she sees Joan again after her daughter dies, that seemed like kind of a bright spot as far as like, okay, there's somebody good in this world, like, somebody to help her work through this. And then you find out she's actually doing the opposite of that. She's ruining her family.
Connected to the mom and this cult.
The mom connection stuff kind of reminded me of, was it Lights Out? You know what I mean? It just seemed like there was a lot of things being tied in a knot, which was good.
Because it's not a story where it's kind of random occurrences. It's more of planned out and connected. And
typically that is an audience pleaser thing.
Yeah.
They did... I don't know. There's not a lot of ambiguity here. So you would think audiences would be a little bit more into it, but maybe this was the wrong mix of slow burn. You know what I mean? So you're kind of splitting some of the audiences sometimes on being too on the nose. But yeah, as far as the death stuff too, and the son and her blaming each other a little bit. Yeah. Like, if you would have done this wouldn't happen. Well, if you would have done this... Yeah. Like, I've thought about people's deaths before as far as, like, being in situations where... you think like maybe some weird butterfly effect action. You know what I mean? And that's what I was kind of thinking about, people that I've known that passed away, and kind of a butterfly effect thing. Well, maybe if I would have like hung out with them on this day, things would have changed. Yeah. And that had my mind going for like 20 minutes in the film.
Yeah.
And I've seen other people talk about. I saw somebody else saying they almost had to walk out because they were dealing with the death that happened like in the past year of their mother or somebody close to them. So. The film handles things in a serious enough way, and kind of, with the daughter's death. I mean, that's a heavy thing that, and the way it happens is so horrifying, and the fact that it was all an accident. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that makes it even worse. Yeah. It's not like some slasher coming in and killing the daughter, and you're like, okay, the daughter's dead, whatever. Like, this is a horrible situation, and the son is so shocked he doesn't even come to his parents. Like, that is that was like, you were thinking, oh no, go tell somebody or drive to the hospital, even still, because that just, that's going to cause tension. Yeah. So I just love the way it kind of twists those knots on creating tension with the family, and it is some heavy ass family drama. Yeah. So I really want to revisit this film now that I've seen what it is, but it definitely is going to be one that sticks with me because it has already. And I'm excited to watch it again. But it is very much, I could see it being splitting audiences, totally seeing that. Yeah. It might be your flavor, it might not be.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that kind of wraps up our discussion of Hereditary. If you haven't watched any of our other stuff, we do have a podcast series. We have the videos we post to YouTube, and it's on iTunes and Google Play and all the places you find podcasts, where we review movies each week, talk about news, things like that. So you can check that out if you haven't. We do short films, things like that. So if you check our channel out, you can see all the different videos we do. So that'll wrap up our discussion of Hereditary. So
let us know what you think in the comments too.
Yeah, let us know what your opinions are.
This is like, one of the
polarizing movie.
One of the most anticipated horror films of the year that is not a sequel. Yeah. So yeah, we are very interested in seeing what people think. I don't know. You probably don't want to give a score right now, right? Do you?
I mean, it's kind of hard because like I thought it was a very well done movie, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. Yeah. So to me, like right now, just after the first watch, it's, like a 6 or something, like very well done, has some disturbing elements, but nothing that initially compelled me to want to rewatch it immediately. It seems like something that if it comes to streaming services or something like that later where it's easy to watch, I might go back and give it another watch to see if my opinion changes. I could definitely see the craft to it and what was, effective, but it wasn't really the type of thing that would land as like my number one movie of the year or anything. So I enjoyed what it did, but it wasn't really a movie that compelled me a lot, like some other things.
I'm normally not into the supernatural stuff on this level. Sometimes I can be, but I've been inundated by a lot of the Blumhouse films.
Yeah.
It's what sells. That's totally fine. I'm not blaming them for anything.
Like The Conjuring, all these different spin-off movies.
So normally that isn't my cup of tea, but all the other elements I liked so much, and kind of what they did with it. You know, it wasn't just ghosts coming out. It was the family drama and how all that was wrapped up in it that I think was, you know, made it worth doing.
Yeah.
But walking out, I think I probably would have given it at least an 8.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a little bit higher. Right now, I think it is a solid 9 for me, probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's going to go when I watch it again. You know what I mean? But I really enjoyed it after the fact. But again, in the film, I was just waiting, like, okay, what's going to happen? It was too much of, I was thinking ahead, then distracted, thinking about my own personal, you know, things that happen in my life. But that is also a thing that the film did. You know what I mean? So it's like I give it credit for that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. But we'll see where it lands this year on our best of. But well-crafted film, regardless if it's your cup of tea or not.
Yep. So let us know what you know, or let us know what you think in the comments. We'll be glad to see anything there. And that'll wrap up our discussion of Hereditary. Thanks for watching.